Good evening. I am Paula Fontana, Vice President of Strategic Programming Initiatives with the National Black MBA Association, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar this evening. So tonight's program is the perfect example of the benefits of membership with this year-round programming that we provide to you. However, I did want to make you all aware that our conference and career fair, which will be a virtual experience, has officially launched. You do not want to miss this. Typically, there are roughly 8,000 to 10,000 of us who descend upon a city. Well, now we will descend upon the internet, and there will still be incredible programming as well as job opportunities for you. So you will see the link to register for that in the chat, and we'll also put it up at the end of this evening. So for tonight, we're talking about staying sane in a crazy world, which I know we all can absolutely relate. The person who will be bringing us the program tonight is Tanya Echols. She is an international executive coach, a leadership consultant, a facilitator, a speaker, and a writer, and she has over 25 years of experience. So I know she is perfectly poised to lead us through this discussion tonight. I love one of her belief systems. She believes that everyone possesses the capacity to design their world as they choose and become successful leaders in all aspects of life. Join me from your homes or wherever you may be in our speaker for tonight, Tanya Echols.
Thank you so much, Paula. Thank you for allowing me to enter the space and share the space with you and all the wonderful members. Again, my name is Tanya Echols, and I'm just so honored to be a part of this presentation, this space that we're creating tonight with each other. And if you hear any thunder in the background, I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. So there's a little bit of storming going on. So if you do hear that, no, everything's okay. But there might be some weather coming my way here shortly. Again, wonderful to be in this space and sharing this topic that's so important for us right now, staying sane in a crazy world. And I think many of us can relate to just how much we're all struggling to try to keep under control and pull together with everything that's going on right now. A little bit about me, as Paul already said, I'm an executive coach and leadership consultant and a whole bunch of other things, but I really am focused on helping leaders create their lives, both professionally and personally, in the way that they feel is most fulfilling for themselves. I have over 25 years of experience myself, both as a corporate leader and as a coach and consultant. So I understand what it's like to lead large teams and manage those roles that really everything's pulling at you in every different direction, and understanding what it means to show up in a way that is not just about getting things done, but it's also about being that person who's inspiring and influencing others. So in 2008, I went through kind of an evolution of my own in that for most of my career, I led a large digital media team that supported websites for radio, television, and newspapers across the country in the United States. And, you know, we were moving and shaking all over the place. Amazon called me once, and they're like, "Oh, we want to license your content for this thing we're building called a Kindle." And like, okay, what's this thing that you can keep all your books and your magazines in this one device? This sounds crazy. And obviously, what we can see how far the world has come. But in 2008, as many of you may be familiar with, that was the time of our economic downturn, and there was a lot of chaos. And I was asked, or I wasn't asked, I was told that I had to lay off about a third of my group. And we were doing a complete restructure, reorg, and pulling everybody into one big group across divisions that had once been separate. And it was a challenge. And it challenged my leadership in a way that I had to move beyond the projects and the getting the stuff done and having the title and all the things that went with it, and focusing on the people. How can I continue to help people grow and develop when they don't really know what's going to happen? And I can't guarantee that they're going to have a job in 6 months or a year. but how can I show up as a human being to another human being to help them thrive and flourish with whatever circumstance that's in front of them. And that's when I really started to understand what leadership was, because it is about understanding how to be resilient, how to thrive, how to grow, regardless of your circumstance. And that's what we want to start talking about today. So I'm going to ask you to think about the fact that you are indeed a whole person. And you may say, well, Tanya, of course I'm a whole person. I'm well acquainted with who I am and what that means. But I want you to start thinking about the fact that wherever you are, whether it's work, whether it's home, now those locations are pretty much the same thing, because many of us are still in a lockdown mode, or at least a quarantining, even if it's self-quarantining. But understanding that wherever you are, you bring your whole self to every situation. And that includes your work, that includes your family. I know we like to try to sort of siphon ourselves off into little segments. And oh, this is, work Tanya, and this is home Tanya, and this is vacation Tanya, whatever that may be. Well, the reality is you are the totality of every experience you've ever had in your life, in every moment that you exist. And every new experience adds into that pile, into that next minute, that next hour, that next day. You are the compilation of all your experiences. And it's never been more apparent than now that you are a whole person, because all those lines have blurred. The lines have blurred between work and home, between understanding the impact of the world on our corner of the world, and how we as individuals can impact the rest of the world, whether or not we're wearing a mask, understanding what's going on in the world, especially in the US, around the final, hopefully, at least another phase of the awakening of the injustice of racial inequality in our country, and systemic racial inequality, and starting to see those gears moving once again, and understanding how it's all coming together. That now we are having conversations in the work environment that we traditionally were told not to have, to talk about this very politically driven issue, although I consider it more of a human and civil rights issue, but from a work standpoint, it was always something to stay away from. Now we're having those conversations. We are forcing ourselves and forcing others, and now not as much force, hopefully, to have these conversations and to understand what is impacting us individually, how it's impacting our organizations, how it's impacting us as humans. And you want to recognize that whatever you're feeling in this moment, however you're coping, whether it's work, whether it's family, the pandemic, racial inequality, the state of our country, the state of the world, they're all running together. And however you're choosing to process and deal with that is what's right for you in this moment. And you want to accept that and understand that's okay, and give yourself that space and grace to feel whatever emotions are coming up for you. And sometimes it may feel unmanageable. So when I say that, I kind of want to throw it out for all of you. Just if you could raise your hands if you faced challenge around managing all the things that are coming at you. So if you can go over and click by your name, just raise your hand. Yep, it's filling up. And I want it to fill up. I want you all to see, yes, you're not the only one. Yep, keep raising those hands. We all are experiencing this right now. We're all trying to figure out how to make this work, how to still show up for our family, how to still show up for our jobs, how to still show up in our communities and the projects and the organizations that we care about, and how do we show up for ourselves. So always recognize that you are a whole person. And whatever way you are processing this now is perfectly fine and what's intended for you. Okay? So some of you have heard of the term VUCA, right? We hear that a lot in the corporate space. If you've done any leadership development and org development work, you've heard of VUCA. Easy for me to say: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And the term VUCA actually was coined back, I think, in '87. And it was from Warren Bennis and Bert Nannis, who really, this came out of the US Army War College, because they were using it to describe the collapse or the new world that kind of existed after the end of the Cold War. And they use this to describe, how do we start to think and act and see the world in a different way now that the rules have changed. And I think we're in that space right now. We are in a VUCA environment internationally, globally, that we aren't sure what's coming next. So many things are still uncertain. We don't even know if kids are going to go back to school in the next 6 weeks. You're not sure, who's getting furloughed and what's going on and how am I going to get childcare and who's going to do homeschooling if they're home. It's like it's either way, it's turning into just more and more uncertainty and complexity and ambiguity, and it feels overwhelming. And when you start to think about the fact that we're all in this together, we can start to create that compassion for others, but also for ourselves. So you want to understand and connect to the fact that you're not in this alone. We are all experiencing this. And for many of us as African Americans, on top of that, we have this racial injustice issue that we have always lived with and always dealt with, that has now risen to the surface again. So on top of everything else that's going on, now we're getting those phone calls and those emails of support from people who want to be allies, who are trying to get educated and they want to talk to you, and maybe they're even seeking some absolution in some way from you. And you're just sort of sitting there. I know for me, it's been like, well, where have you been? And why is it now that I'm supposed to be the person to come in and manage all this for you and help you figure out how to be the kind of human being I would hope we all would want to be? And again, it's not from a place of blame, and it's not from a place of trying to keep us even more divided, but it's understanding that it's natural to have those feelings, to feel that frustration, to feel that overwhelm. It's also very natural to want to show up as a leader and show up and say, you know what, I wish I didn't have to, but I do raise my hand to be part of that conversation. I raise my hand to help develop and grow other people, and I raise my hand to speak up and speak out. But again, another layer on top of everything else that's going on. So understanding that this is happening for all of us, and for us, it's particularly as people of African descent within the United States, it is exceptionally challenging because we've got racial injustice and finally having to start to rip off some of those really poorly bandaged wounds to now manage everything else that's going on. So how do we do that? And I've come up with this model that I call CARE. It's a focus on connection, awareness, resilience, and expansion. How do we start to take care of ourselves in the midst of so much craziness that's going on in the world? So I'm going to walk you through each of these, but understanding that this is, again, creating space for yourself. How do you create the space for yourself to heal, to grow, to bounce back, and to understand more about yourself, so that when we walk away from this, hopefully at some point we're able to live somewhat more of a normal life? What is our capacity to walk away and say, I'm better for it? I grew from this experience, as opposed to I just survived it. Okay. So let's talk about our first step here around connection. Connection is so important in this time. It's important that you stay connected to others and that you build those personal relationships, both honestly with yourself and with other people. So if you could type in the chat box, I just want to hear you type in the chat box a few things. What do you think keeps you from connecting? What keeps you from connecting to others, especially during this time? What's been holding you back? Just want to see ideas. What's happening for you? What's coming up for you? What's been keeping you from connecting to other people? Time, yep. Time and busyness, and fear of judgment. Yes, fear of judgment. What else is coming up? But those are two of the really big ones. It's that we're so busy, especially now, that we're trying to balance everything all at once and do it all somehow from within our homes. And that's always been a challenge, but even more so now, because the other part of being somewhat tied to our homes is that people always know where we are. And it does feel like we're always sitting on these Zoom calls and the video camera's always on. And it's hard to know, when do I cut off my computer and live my life in my house when I just spent the previous 8 to 10 hours working in my home? Being intimate, fear of being judged. Some of us have that concern about, I don't want to appear weak or like I need people. Well, guess what? We're humans. We do need, and more importantly, want to have others around us. Shame of being unemployed. Yeah, let me disconnect. I just got furloughed. I just got laid off. My company just shut down. I had to shut my company down. I worked with a leader a few weeks ago who was really struggling because she said if we can't open back up by I think mid-June, she's like, I don't think I'll ever be able to open back up. And this is, an intelligent woman, biotech, everything going for her and everything had been going her way. And this one incident shut so much down. And we tend to want to shut down. Same with the frustration that, I don't want to, I'm too connected to all my feelings. Maybe I'm so frustrated. I just don't want to deal with anybody right now. Let me decompress. So all of these things are factoring in what's keeping us from connecting. And the very things that are keeping us from wanting to connect are the exact reasons why we want to make sure we're building those connections. You want to understand what's most important for you. What is your priority in your life? And we think about, oh, it's my job, oh, it's this. But when you think about what's going to matter to you when you're 75 years old, what's going to be the most important thing? That you found that $500,000 you had to get so we could finish out the month and close under budget or close near budget? Or that you built connections with your family, with your loved ones, with the organizations that you care about, that you connected with other people and built that support that allows you to move forward. So some of the things that you might want to think about, how do I can decompress with the same set of friends? And again, this goes both ways. It's a relationship with yourself as well. So maybe you had enough friend time. And maybe we want to watch the people that we're around. And are some of those friends actually adding to some of our stress? Or are they feeding some of that fear and some of that judgment and some of that need to present a facade because, hey, they seem to all be doing well. I can't show them that I'm not. So you also want to think about who you're connecting to. So prioritizing that connection for yourself, prioritizing those connections to others, but then also taking a look at who am I hanging around with? Are they feeding and helping me to flourish and thrive? Or are they actually maybe pulling my energy even deeper down? So you want to be aware of that and connect to that. We see here from Kristen, don't know what technology to use to connect with others. And I think Zoom is both our blessing and our curse, right? I know many of us, we've been on Zoom birthday parties and we've been to Zoom weddings and Zoom baby showers and all these other things. But there is something to be said sometimes for just picking up the phone or using Zoom without the video. So you don't always have to feel so exposed. But that in this moment, technology is our friend, as much as it sometimes feels like it's the thing that's keeping us confined, but it's also our way to stay connected. Yes, this season I realized that my social group was toxic. That's part of the growth, and we'll talk about that more around our awareness. But yes, this is a time to do some of that self-reflection and look at the people around. Who are the people am I hanging out with? And are these the people who are here with me when I got furloughed, when I got laid off? Or are these the people who just wanted to be with me when I had the big fancy title and the big fancy job and the great big office and the company that I was running? Okay. So yeah, you guys are definitely connecting to this and that understanding that fear. So let's talk about how do you start to combat that? So one of the things you want to do is set boundaries. Set boundaries between your work and your personal. Pick a time. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6, maybe it's 7, just depending on what your work schedule requires you to do or how you want to show up at work. Know that it's time to shut down the computer, or at least shut it down for things related to work. You don't have to answer that email just because you're home. Just because you're home, it means it's going to be there tomorrow at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whenever you fire that machine back up. Set some clear boundaries for yourself with work and with your family to also know that, okay, this is work time and I do need to have some focus and this is important for me. And my career is a part of something that I really care about and want to continue to develop. So setting those boundaries with family as well. So on both sides of that equation, make sure that you have clarity on what it is. No is a complete sentence. Yes, sometimes you can just say no. You don't have to explain it. Just set the boundary. and say, this is my time for work, this is my time for friends, this is my time for family. And it's really important now to do that because it is so blurred, because all three of those things may happen in the same spot that I've been sitting in all day. I can be on conference calls all day, and then I come and do this webinar with you all, and then I do a happy hour maybe with my friends on Zoom, and then you check in with your family across the country and have family time, or you go downstairs and hang out with your family downstairs. Whatever that is for you, make sure those boundaries are clear, because if you don't set them, no one will set them for you, and no one will honor them except you until you set them and make them clear. Okay. Also, as I mentioned, we talked about using technology. So use technology to your advantage. Here's one thing I will say around the video and the Zoom fatigue that everyone keeps talking about. I am a big proponent, and I started this, I don't think it's officially a thing, but we can start it now, that I did a video mental health day. So I would still get on my Zoom calls, I would still participate, but I did not turn on my video all day. And I felt very comfortable telling people that I'm just not doing video today. And yes, it may feel odd to some people, but it's about setting that boundary and knowing that, what, I can be here and I can be present, but I don't want to be on camera. I've got enough that I'm dealing with, that if I need this day or this 2 days to be off video, be off video. Set those boundaries for yourself and honor them. Again, connecting to your family and friends, making sure you're taking that time to engage. It may be that, as I said, you're doing a virtual happy hour. You're hanging out with your, grandmother over the phone because you can't see her in person. Whatever that is, make sure you're making time for that. Also, this is a good time to network. This is a great time to network. And here's the thing with networking, and this is the one that this may be a perfect time to hone this part of networking. Networking is not about passing out business cards and what can you do for me and can you connect me to so-and-so. Really effective strategic networking is about building relationships, and building relationships with people when they may not necessarily have anything they can quote unquote offer you right now. And in this case, because of the way things are going, they may not be able to. They can't say, oh, we want to close that deal by October. We don't know what's going to happen by October. Build that relationship now. Get to know that person. The more you can make this personal, the more you can make, and this is true, I get excited about this one because it's so important. This is true even in person, but I think now even more so. Make those calls with potential customers or potential partners and colleagues just to talk. Not about having some agenda specifically around what are we going to do with this project or that project. Get to know them, build that relationship. You will be surprised that when it comes back around, and maybe it is October or maybe it's February of 2021, they're like, you know what? We just had such a great connection. I'm going to call Tanya. I'm going to call Ray. I'm going to call Jackie. I'm going to call Angeline, because you know what? I built a rapport with them over those times when it was really challenging and difficult. And you know what? I feel comfortable with them. So make sure that you are connecting with people, even from a professional standpoint, but connecting with them in a very human way. It's not about, oh, they can't do anything for me right now because they're going to shut down their businesses for the next 6 weeks. Well, you know what? Still call them. Show that you are still there as a source of support, because you never know where life's going to take you. Okay. And it's not about being transactional. You want your relationships to be personal and transformational. And if you walk through life with transactional networking, you're going to get the result of that. And if no one wants to transact with you, then that defeats the purpose of you wanting to connect to begin with. Make sure you're building realistic and strong connections, both professionally and really developing your personal ones as well. And to the point we talked about earlier, assessing whether the people that you're trying to network with or connect with, even perhaps within your family, are the people that are really helping you thrive and grow. Wonderful. All right. So we talked about connection. Now let's talk about awareness. How do we increase our awareness? Awareness of how you're showing up. Awareness of how you want to show up. So let's first start this discussion talking about triggers. Triggers are those little buttons that get pushed when something is just irritating you. And usually what causes those buttons to get pushed is some kind of conflict with your values or your beliefs. So if you've got someone who keeps putting off your meetings and yet just really starts to really make you angry, think about why. Why am I so angry that this person is pushing off my meetings? Well, asking myself that question, I feel it's disrespectful. It makes me feel like they must not respect or value my opinion or my time. Now ask yourself, how true is that? Or is that just my interpretation, my story about what I think is going on? That person truly just may have other things happening. They haven't even considered how it's going to impact you. So understand, what are my triggers? What's happening? And again, when we are confined, or we at least feel confined or limited in our capacity to engage with people, that can make it even more intense. So you want to start to tap into understanding, what is the feeling and the reasoning behind the reason I'm getting upset? Because every time you allow yourself to give in to that anger or that frustration, you are giving your power away. You are losing your capacity to engage with that prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that does the reasoning and the thinking and makes those amazing decisions. You allow yourself to get hijacked by your amygdala. And you probably, any of you who've done any kind of coaching or any kind of work in that area, you may have heard of amygdala hijacking. Your amygdala is what gives you the fight or flight. Do I need to fight this person, or do I need to go hide? Here's the thing, your amygdala is super quick because it's always about trying to protect you. And your prefrontal cortex needs more time to process information. So that's why awareness is so important, especially around your triggers, because that amygdala will jump in and tell you to write that angry email or to pick up that phone and bless somebody out because you feel like, we scheduled this 3 weeks ago and you canceled it an hour beforehand. Your prefrontal cortex lets you tap into, okay, why am I really upset here? And also to help you tap into whether or not you're upset about this at all, you're upset about something entirely different that had nothing to do with this person. But you're allowing that amygdala hijack in your brain, your physiological responses, to impact how you're showing up. And then that brings us into attitude. What's your attitude? What's the energy you're bringing into rooms? What's the energy you bring into your meetings virtually, your virtual meetings? What's the energy you're bringing into your home with your family, with your friends? Understanding your attitude, because it's not just about our mindset and understanding our triggers, it's also about how our outward behaviors and our outward energy impacts those around us. And so many people don't understand the impact. Have you ever walked into a room where you can tell someone's had an argument? You can feel that. And you can see by someone's face or how they're sitting or just the way they're gripping the table. You can see, and that impacts everyone else around you. So make sure you're also aware of your attitude. So your triggers and your attitude. How are you behaving? How are you showing up? Also, let's focus on mental health. And I know that's something I think that we tend not to focus as much on because we kind of think we can figure our way through things and you can pray on it. We'll figure it out. And we don't want to necessarily talk about it. And I grew up in the South, and I know that was something that we really didn't talk about a whole lot, about mental health and being aware of that. Recognize if you're getting overloaded. Recognize if you're getting burned out. Recognize if others around you might be having some of those challenges. That's part of your emotional intelligence kicking in, to be not only able to manage yourself, but to help and recognize others in those, if they're having those kinds of challenges. So always be aware of what's the tipping point. Okay, yesterday I was just sad. Am I now moving into something deeper, something darker? And know that there are ways to get help. For some of you, whatever the way that help means for you, maybe it is a professional, medical professional, maybe it's someone in your faith, in your spiritual practice. Maybe it's just someone that you feel close enough to have those conversations. Don't try to push it down. Be aware there's a lot going on right now, and there's a lot that's being pulled up from us energetically because of what's going on, not only with the pandemic, but again, 400 years at a minimum, 400 years of racial injustice, and understanding how that's been impacting us generationally. So there are generational wounds that are also part of this discussion for us, especially and understanding what that's like to grow up with, my parents grew up in the segregated South. And I know that I was raised with a parent who always had that in the back of their minds as to how I was raised, and the way that I was raised to engage with people. And as we are in a place where we can have these discussions. It's bringing up some of that very real trauma for us, for our families, and honestly for the next generations, because what are they seeing? Look what they're seeing in the world right now. As much as we've seen that some progress and some awareness, we've also seen a significant rise in the hatred and the racism and the bigotry that is so prevalent in parts of our society. So understand there is a mental impact of this, and be aware of that and recognize that for yourself and potentially for others. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. Okay. Other things we want to do and be aware of: being active. Sometimes that's a way to release some of that pent up energy and frustration. So just keeping an awareness around your physical being. Am I eating more than I should? And I know we've all probably been eating more than we should, but being aware of it, being more aware of your physical body. Do you want to get out and take that walk around the neighborhood? Do you want to go to, somewhere that you feel is safe enough from a COVID standpoint to actually get in that physical exercise that maybe you're used to having, or that you aren't naturally having as much because you're stuck at home? So it's just understanding that you want to be aware of everything about yourself. Don't push anything down right now. This is your chance to unearth it and seek help for it. Whether that help is just you taking the time to understand it, that help is speaking with someone else, or that help is just changing your environment, changing the people that you're around. Yeah, Lamania, thank you for sharing that and being so open about that. We see that this stuff has affected us over our whole lives. It impacts everything. That's why I started this out by talking about we are whole people. And just because I can do my hair and my makeup and walk in the office or get on my Zoom call and look like I'm all put together, that doesn't mean I'm not still in pain. Doesn't mean I'm still suffering. And I want to be aware of that. And I want to understand that I do have the power to get help, to be able to either find an outlet for it, find professional help or spiritual help for that, but I can actually dive into something that will allow me to make a change, that you do have that power. But thank you for sharing that. This is the stuff we want to talk about. Sometimes we get very caught up in the image that we're trying to present, that we're all these, healthy professional people who can make things happen and move things forward, but we all still have pain. We saw all those hands raised when I asked the question at the beginning of who's had challenges during this time. We all are. And know that you have people around you who want to support you, but they don't know, and they won't know until you understand it. We're going to provide resources for us in each of these areas. I won't tonight, but I'm happy to provide some links and things for you afterwards, because I'm going to send another piece of information out afterwards of one of the exercises we're actually going to do tonight. So I can provide you with some links and resources. So I will do that. And thank you, Pamela, for mentioning that also. All right. So let's just talk a little bit about how we can dive into this more. And this is one of the resources I'm going to send you. It's called the Wheel of Life. And it's just a quick way to assess, where do I feel that, gosh, I'm not showing up at my best. I'm not satisfied with how my life is coming together. And you'll see these areas here. You see family and parenting, personal development, spiritual awareness, fun and enjoyment, relationship, health and aging, personal finance, and career progression. So what we do with this, and this is what we'll send, one of the things that we'll send after this to everyone who's attended, is a version of this. It's a PDF that you can actually go and do this exercise for yourself. But basically, you go through each of these segments, and on a scale of 1 to 10, rate what's your current level of satisfaction in your life, with 1 being low and 10 being high. And keep in mind, satisfaction is just that. Are you satisfied? So when you think about personal finance, if you're not making a ton of money, but you're satisfied with that because it affords you the kind of lifestyle you want to live. If I've gotten to go off and become a yoga teacher, and yeah, I don't have the big six and a half six-figure job anymore, but I'm living a life that's fulfilling to me, then that means you are satisfied in your personal finances. So don't gauge it by other things that other people may think it is. What is your true personal level of satisfaction? So when you look at all these areas, and if we can launch the poll now, just as you think about it, which of the areas do you think you feel you maybe are having challenges with? Okay, let's launch the poll. Perfect. So which area of your life would you most like to focus on improving your level of satisfaction? So just vote and see what's coming up. And Dee, I think you can see on your end when it looks like most of the people have voted, and we can share the results when we get to that 50s range, hopefully. And this is anonymous, so don't worry if you're concerned about it. This is completely anonymous. All right, are we close to having everybody voting? So whenever you're ready, Dee, just show the results. There we go. Relationships. No surprise. We've all been stuck together for a while, or we've been stuck by ourselves, and that makes us also recognize, oh, I'm not in a relationship. Everybody else has got people in their house, and I don't have one. But yeah, it's no surprise that that would be one of the big ones. Also, health and aging. Obviously, health would be something that's a big challenge for everyone right now. Those of us with, aging parents, people who are physically compromised in some way. Personal finances, yep, we don't know what's coming. We don't know what's happening. So that makes sense as well. And our career and profession, because what's going to happen. I was speaking with a client earlier today, and, she pretty much said, I haven't been told specifically, but there's going to be a big structural change in the organization next quarter. And she didn't know what that meant for her and for her team. So she was trying to be resilient, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But she really did start to recognize that, okay, I've got to start planning. What does this mean for my career? You could have checked 3 boxes. Yes, Deborah, we could have checked probably many of them. But yeah, this is a way for you to start to dive into this assessment and see what are the areas I want to start to work on and prioritize. And that's what awareness is all about. Sometimes until you can put it in something that's very kind of black and white, or in this case, blue and white, that's when you can start to really say, okay, I'm going to focus on this. This is important enough. And wow, I didn't even realize that my spirituality was at a 2, or I didn't realize that my personal finances, I'm not as satisfied as I thought I was. So this is how we start that process. And you'll get a version of this in an email afterward that'll go out so you can have access to it and start to do this for yourselves. You can do it for your families as well. Maybe this is something you get with your whole family and you all talk about, how do we feel as a group in these areas. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to raise that awareness. So we can close the poll now. And let's move into our next area, resilience. Resilience. And I did just want to mention, if you have specific questions for me as we go through this, because I will do a Q&A at the end, which will be wrapping up here not too long from now. Would love to hear some questions from you specifically. So make sure you put the questions in the Q&A. If you put them in the chat, it may get lost. I've been able to catch them as they come up. But if you have a specific question for me, be sure to put them in the Q&A and I'll answer them at the end as well. So please start filling that up and I'm happy to answer your questions. So we've been through the C with connection, the A with awareness. Now let's move into R, resilience. And I love this photo. This woman's on this very precarious looking rock and she is at complete peace. And that's what resilience is about. It's about your ability to recover from or adjust easily to any misfortune or change. That's straight out of Merriam-Webster's dictionary. That is the definition. And checking into what's your ability, what's your capacity to recover from difficult situations, from tough situations. So you've heard of this referred to as grit, toughness, all sorts of things. But the thing I like to think about really the most, and some of you may have heard this, but when you think about palm trees, palm trees look kind of thin and they look a little, they don't look all that strong and they just got that little tuft of leaves at the top. What's up with that? Well, if you notice, in tropical climates, what do they have a lot of? Storms, right? And palm trees are designed, the way they are built and made up allows them to bend and bend and bend. And when that's over, they come back. So that's what we want to start to build up and understand, that I don't have to be the strongest person. When I get hurt, I can bend. I can take that time and process and experience whatever emotions I'm feeling, and then I can come back up. I don't have to let that overcome me. Okay. So when you think about resilience, here's some ways we can start to build that. First, focus on your purpose. Get clarity. Why are you here? Why do you do this job? Why do you stay in this relationship? Why do you want to build this life for your family? Find and understand what your purpose is. If you can come back to your purpose, decisions get a lot easier, because you can determine, is this getting me or fulfilling my purpose on this planet, in my life, in my family, in my career? And if it's not in alignment with that, you let it go. That's how you start to build resilience. Same with your values. What is important to you? Is it honesty, authenticity, family, work, fun, friends, whatever those are for you? Again, this helps make your decisions a lot easier to make. And it also helps you navigate back to, hey, this horrible thing just happened. But you know what I care most about? Being authentic and present in this moment. So yes, this happened, and I'm going to figure out how to process that in a way that still allows me to align with my values of that authentic presence, as well as my purpose of why I feel I'm here on this planet or I'm here in this situation. And then it allows me to come back. It doesn't overwhelm me. One of the things that, this is a personal soapbox moment for me, people talk about being fearless. I want to be fearless. And I don't believe in that at all. I think without fear, we don't grow. Yes, if you're allowing fear to overtake you and keep you down and keep you from moving forward, then yeah, fear is not to your benefit. But if you can use fear as information, if you could use fear as an opportunity for you to say, why am I afraid? And usually we're afraid because there's a fear of losing something, or there's a fear of discomfort. Okay. Understanding, what is my attachment to that thing that I'm afraid of losing or I'm afraid of being uncomfortable with? Because if I can now recognize that, it no longer has power on me, over me, because I can see it for what it is. And then I can start to make plans to address whatever the source of that fear is. So then it no longer, again, has that power. So it's not about just bouncing back and being this fearless creature. Use your fear as information, not something that holds you down. Okay. Also, building resilience, a big key to improving that is knowing what resources do you have? What support structures do you have? Who do you know? Who do you have access to? What resources, what personal knowledge and information do you have access to? Know what is it that you can fall back on. One of the things I call this is basically it's your superpower. So I want you all just to take just a quick moment here and think about, what is that thing? Think back to hard times you've had, things you've come through. What's the one characteristic about you that got you through it? So take a moment here, think about that characteristic. And if you'd like to, I'd love to see you type that in the chat box. Type in, what is your superpower? What is that thing? Perseverance. You just want to, I'm going to get through it. I keep pushing through. What is that superpower? Your faith. Some of us really, that's the thing. Sometimes it's just knowing I believe in a higher power. I believe it, for me, that's God, but for whatever that may be for you, to know that there's something, there's a bigger plan. Knowledge, connector, positivity, short attention span. I love that. Hey, I'll get over it because I'll forget about this soon. My mom was actually like that. She would forget about things she got so upset about because she really had a short attention span. A desire to excel. Like, yeah, this has got me down, but hey, I want to do well. So what am I going to learn? What do I want to know from this experience that's gotten me down that I can move forward with? Exactly. Positive talk. Positive self-talk is so important. Honestly, there's probably no one on this planet who has ever been meaner to you than you. We tell ourselves horrible things about ourselves every day if we're not cautious and we're not careful to stay focused and give ourselves that positive self-talk. And one of the things I think about, and some of you may have done this exercise where you write a letter to someone you love. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's your pet, whatever it is. Write a letter to someone you love about what you want for them, what you want them to experience in life. And then recognize once you've written that letter that that's what you want. And why can't you tell yourself those stories all day? And that's what you want to start to focus on. What's that positive self-talk? What are the resources you have within you that can allow you to overcome it? Your pride. Don't allow a situation to define me. Because again, I love that, Deborah, because when you know your purpose, you know your values, nothing else can define you unless you allow it to. So that's a wonderful way. You guys are just, my heart is getting really full here talking about this. Yeah, poem, don't quit. What's the thing that can pull you out? Self-esteem, don't give up, stay the course, determination, attitude, all of it. You guys are just, this is beautiful. I love it. I don't want to get off track, so I'm gonna make sure I get you guys out of here on time. But understanding what are the resources you have within you and the support structures you have even externally that you can use to get through tough times. Have a growth mindset. If you think that you know everything there is to know, you're never gonna learn anything else. Be open to understanding that there's always more. You may have this stuff wired, you are smart, you got this, great. There's still stuff you don't know. The minute you stop learning, if there's a principle from my coach training program that's you either grow or die. If you're not growing, that is a form of being cut off and dying, okay? So understanding there's always more to learn. Participate in a Zoom call, that will encourage you. I hope so, yes. And then finally, here's a tough one for building your resilience is seeking feedback. And you have to be mentally prepared to do that. And you need to be prepared to hear things that you don't necessarily want to hear or aren't pleasant to hear. But seek feedback from people you trust about what your strengths are, what they're noticing about you that you might have the ability to improve. Again, you want to be ready to hear some things that might be tough, but that's how you build resilience. And, you know, this was kind of a twisted way that my mom did it, and probably some of your parents did too. She's like, I'd rather tell you than somebody on the street. And that was her way of helping to improve me. And, you know, sometimes it was not always all that helpful, but it did help me to be resilient, to get feedback, to learn how to take feedback, and again, not to let it define me. I can take that feedback from someone and then I discern what works or what doesn't work from that feedback. But to shut down from hearing from others about how you're engaging and how you're connecting, limits your capacity to grow. So be open to getting feedback and seeking it out, okay? And next, we're talking about expansion. Expansion. I said this earlier, we don't want to walk away from what has really been a trying time for everybody saying, oh, I just survived it. Get something out of it. Find ways to expand. Use this time for growth, especially given that the world honestly is forever changed in some ways. This is a worldwide event that's going to change the way we do things forever in some areas of our lives. So use this time to grow and develop yourself. If you were not a technology, Zoom, webinar, virtual person, make sure you're building that strength now. Don't just try to get through it. Use that, because guess what? This is going to be a permanent way of doing things in a lot of areas. I mean, there are many organizations where now they're actually polling to see who wants to come back even when they can. And there's a big majority of folks in certain organizations who said, I'm fine working from home indefinitely. And that may be a new way of managing your teams, leading your organizations. So get comfortable with new things in the new world that's being created and actually use that to add value and to leverage and to grow, okay? So start learning, training, take some more courses, get some certifications, do the work that you normally wouldn't have time to do because you were physically out places doing other things or you're traveling a lot. Because I know I spent a lot of time at the airport and on planes before this. And now I've had time because I've been able to be in my own house and not in hotel rooms every two or three nights in a row. to do some work on my own development and my own personal development and professional development. Also, hobbies, um, things that you just enjoy doing. What are some of those things that you always wanted to do? That's why I picked this photo here. I love the photo of the one with the violin. What are those things that you just always wanted to do? Now might be your opportunity. Now might be a time for you to pick up a new skill that could be a part of your future. You never know how that's going to come together. Use this time wisely. Use this time to come out more fulfilled, more knowledgeable, more engaged, and more connected to the things that really matter to you. This could also be a time of a life career transition. So again, hey, maybe I did get furloughed. Maybe I did get laid off. Now I'm going to go do something and find a new career path. Be open to just expanding into something that you always wanted to do. So as our final exercise of the evening, I'm going to ask you all to complete this sentence. I always wanted to blank. So again, love to hear it in the chat. What's the thing you always wanted to do? So give me a few. I want to see what are some of those things that you always wanted to do and you just, I never don't have time for that. What is that? I always wanted to blank. Learn to play the piano, serve others, guitar, be an artist, write a book. Oh my gosh, what a good time to write a book. Go on a cruise, start planning because they're going to be really cheap. We can all get back on cruise ships. Start planning it. Spend more time with family. Yep, write a book, travel around the world. I am such a proponent of traveling. When I left my corporate role in, 6 years ago now, I, climbed most of Mount Kilimanjaro. I've been throughout China. I've been to India. I've been to Brazil. I wanted to experience so much because I'd gotten so caught up in my career that I really wasn't living. Learn the guitar, travel to Kenya, do missions work, go to Africa. Yes, I was in Tanzania and I've been to Morocco. So I become a doula. Angie, that's amazing. Oh my gosh. Susan's doing what I always wanted to do in a way that I've lived a happy life. Beautiful. But new goals, right? So you're already happy. It doesn't mean anything's missing, but what can you expand into? Adopt, mentor a young adolescent. You guys are just killing me. Get my master's degree, travel around the world, be a comedian. Yes, that's the stuff you want to do. Tap into whatever that is and however you want to continue to grow and expand. Walk away from this really, what could be a very demoralizing time that can keep us small. Choose to walk away from it expanding. So just take a moment here, start my business. You guys I love it. I just love it so much. I get so excited and I have to stop. So I'm gonna make sure I get you guys out of here on time. But just take some time to reflect. Just take a moment here, just a quick minute, not even a minute, and share what's one thing you're taking away from our discussion this evening. And you can type it in the chat. Just one thing you want to take action on. Something that's come up that maybe something I said or just related to something I said that came up for you. So just share it in the chat. Focusing on growth. Thanks, Kristen. That's great. Staying positive. Yeah. Reset my focus on me, Coretta. Yes, it starts with you. Any change you want to see in your life, in the world, begins with you doing the work on yourself. Without fear, we don't grow. Be open to new things to find my purpose. Value being an active part of living my best life. Adjust how I show up. You guys are wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So with that, I know we're getting close to the end of time here, Paula. If we want to come back, if you have any Q&A that's come up, I think we had a little interaction in the chat, so hopefully that was that covered a lot of it. But I love everything in here. I'm getting inspired reading everything in here, expanding my horizons to be better, stronger coming out of this.
It is absolutely incredible, and this has been an amazing session, Tanya. Thank you so much for what you have done here tonight. I know I have been encouraged. I've learned so much. For me personally, the part about the resilience of the palm tree is something that I will definitely take with me. So we are running pretty much near time. There aren't any questions right now in that Q&A for us to answer. Let's see. Oh, okay, just as I say that, then one
Always
pops
works
up,
out.
right?
It always,
It's like magic. So this will be our one and only question for today. What about being tired of um,
bending.
bending for years? Unlike a palm tree, we are not rooted. So how do we use that message?
So that's my question for you. Why aren't you rooted? How do you get rooted?
Mm,
What's going to create that for you in your life to have that root that's going to anchor you in so you don't get pushed every which way, as my grandma used to say. How do you find that rooting? What's going to make you connect for that? And that's going to be my challenge for you. And I feel confident that you can actually make that happen. But what is going to allow you to feel rooted? Connecting to your values, connecting to what's important for you, finding your purpose. What will give you that root?
that is great. Do you mind moving to that final slide?
Oh, hello, bye everybody. If you want to contact me, teckles@vigersolutions.com. And thank you so much, Paula, for having me here this evening.
Yes, and one more. Okay, great. So, a couple of things before we officially wrap up. Again, thank you so much again, Tanya. So two things, your feedback is absolutely important to us. So you will see in the chat box a link to complete a survey. The first 25 people to fill out that survey and complete it will be entered into a drawing for a chance to win an Amazon gift card. So do not delay. Click on it right now and give us your feedback so that we know if we are on track with regards to the programming that we are providing to you. And then finally, as I mentioned at the beginning of the hour, our first virtual conference and career fair will be September 23rd through 25th. You do not want to miss it. And a link to register for that conference is also in the chat box. Thank you again to Tanya, and thank you for all of us for spending your evening with us. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you again soon.